So this is to showcase all the various routes up Caerphilly Mountain, which is my local climb. The mountain is a very generous term as the summit is only about 270 metres above sea level, so it definitely doesn't classify as an actual mountain, but the routes up it are quite varied considering they're all within a couple mile radius. So there's sort of 9 routes up, although some of these are only partial ascents and join other roads, as you'll see. I've done a couple rides where I've done all sides in one go. It's actually a little trickier to route than you'd expect if you're trying to ensure that you complete the full ascent. This video is going to be absurdly long, so let's get on with it. Like the back. Which way? You might be thinking, wow, did she finally buy a GoPro? Well, the answer is... Hey there. Just call me Bodge McGee.
Oh my god. Does it work?
Oh yeah, I'm recording.
It's gonna fly off.
My head's really heavy, I don't think I can...
Yeah, that's the problem. It's quite a little way.
Not quite. So this is Wenallt Road. It's about 2 kilometres at 6%, but it's basically one really hard kilometre and then it just rolls along until you join the A469. This is probably one of my favourite ways up the mountain, even though it's a pretty atrocious road. But I like that it's sort of no nonsense, you're just straight into the hard stuff from the get-go. Oh my god, my head's so heavy. This was obviously not an effort, although it's always a bit of an effort just to get up this hill. Oh, I'm not military. I'm sorry for all this nauseating head lurching going on. I wasn't really sure where the camera was pointing, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't just showing the ground, so I kept, I don't know, moving my head up and down. It's also strangely popular with drivers. It's not ideal if you have to put your foot down because it's just about impossible to get going again. So yeah, you kind of have to be prepared for a few tight squeezes. And I think more often than not, you do get thwarted in some way or another by them. This camera angle seems to make it look more like I'm walking than cycling, but it's quite entertaining to watch back. And I won't talk too much because I think the various camera angles kind of gives you an idea what the road's like. Actually, I think I probably should talk because those sounds are not good. This is basically the steepest section. Even with the front-facing camera, it's pretty difficult to capture how steep it is. The gradient displayed here is definitely not quite right, but it's definitely into the 20s. Oh my gosh. Right. And when you go around this bend, you can sort of see the end of the harder section, and it eases off a few percent. Another car makes it a lot more manageable. Oh my god.
Just makes sense that of course it'd be the busiest time of the road.
Well, that's good. stuff on ground. This sort of feels like it should be the top, but it levels out briefly and then kicks up again into double digits. Nothing like the earlier gradients, but enough to give the legs a bit of a sting. Hi. And then once you get over this, it really does drop off a lot. The road's quite bendy and obviously pretty narrow, so you can't really drill it along this top section. I think when people do efforts, they don't go all the way to the official highest point. Probably just use the first kind of kilometre or so, because it can get a little hairy around here, but it's pretty nice to just enjoy this stretch and yeah, just keep it rolling. And then this is the top here where it joins the good old A469. If you go right here, it drops down into Thornhill. And then if you go left, there's one more nasty kick. And then it joins the official summit at the Caerphilly Mountain Snack Bar. Next up is Thornhill Road, but first, here's a look at the magic behind the scenes.
Please. Oh no, that's not.
The helmet cam was quite a pain, so today I tried something different.
Seriously? Oh no.
Now that slots in there. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is a really bad idea. That's alright. Très bien. Is it alright? No, it's not really alright, but yeah. Could be worse. Nice, that was a disaster. Come to Wales, it's great here. Love it. Yeah, that wasn't my greatest success, but I made a few adjustments and by some miracle it kind of captured a bit more of the road on the second attempt. So this is the Thornhill Road side, and I start a lot of my rides going up here, basically because it's just the most direct way to get over the mountain for me. I used to avoid it all the time, but if I have limited time and I just want to get over to some better hills, I usually just head straight up here to get it over with. It's not what I'd call a fun climb in any sense of the word. On paper it's pretty nice, it's a mile at 7.5%, but it's got a very gradual start and then basically just ramps up steeper and steeper. It's just not a nice road to cycle along. It's kind of one of the main commuting routes into Cardiff from people coming over from Caerphilly and the valleys, so best avoided morning and evening. Even in the middle of the day it can get quite busy with a lot of kind of fast driving cars, and had my fair share of close passes coming up here. This bridge crosses over the M4, which you'll notice marks the bottom of the ascent for quite a few of the sides. Yeah, it's really quite an uninspiring road, so I'll speed this bit up. Not too much to say about it. The road that joins from the side there is also a nice way to miss out this first drag if you're approaching from the east. When the road finally starts to bend around, the gradient gets pretty tough, and you can't quite see the top, so it seems to drag on forever. It's a bit of a bumpy surface too, so it's quite a slow going slog. These rumble strips are very annoying. There's a crematorium down the road, so it's not uncommon to get caught in a bit of a funeral procession. You can see in terms of views there's really not much. And then the end of the segment is where Wenallt Road joins it, and then there's that dip that I mentioned where it basically just drops down, kicks up, and it's quite a nasty kicker. It's pretty steep into the double digits, and you often just get cars stuck right behind you because it's on a bit of a bend, so they can't really pass safely. And then once you get over that, things do open up a bit. You might have thought that the camera work couldn't get any worse, but I'm here to prove you wrong. What happened here was my iPod Touch, which is about 15 years old, just died halfway through another recording, so I literally jammed my regular phone into the front of the bar bag, hence the extreme rotation and cropping. But you know, it's a low quality video for a low quality ascent. And this is definitely my least favourite side of the mountain. It's another one that's just on the A469, but you're climbing from the Nantgarw side. And once again, it's actually probably the nicest one if you just look at it on paper, just over a mile at around 7%. But just like the other side, it's busy with cars. I've only ridden it a handful of times, despite obviously living very close to it. There's this lane called Blackbrook, which kind of deviates off at the bottom, and then it joins Rhiwbina Hill just before the last kick. So I wouldn't even say 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, I would opt for that route instead of heading up this road. Here's some footage from Blackbrook. It's quite a nice lane, very undulating, and often very wet. I think, if nothing else, I've managed to make the most malaise-inducing video of all time with all these camera angles. Don't worry, filming will improve after this side. And this junction here is where it joins Rhiwbina Hill. I won't show any more from here because Rhiwbina Hill is coming up next. So you can see this road joining from the left here, and this is Watford Road. And if you're trying to ride all the complete ascents of Caerphilly Mountain, this would sort of count as one. So you'd come up here and then just take a left and join the route here. I won't include this as a full ascent because you don't need to see the same stretch of road multiple times. But here's the footage from Caerphilly up to the junction. I often do just a little ramp up from Caerphilly and then take a right and drop down to Blackbrook and do a bit of a circuit from there. Basically anything to avoid climbing the A road. I've done loops here before, like interval circuits where you can just do repeats either up or down the main way of Caerphilly Mountain and yeah, loop it around here. So it's quite a good little loop for that. And during lockdowns when the roads were quieter, I did a few sessions. I don't think I could even say sessions because my training is random. But yeah, I did a few rides where I just looped it around this circuit. And that road on the right there is Rhiwbina Hill. There's really not much to say about this road. I mean, it is what it looks like. A very consistent gradient. Feels harder than it probably would if it was a nicer road, just because once again, you know, you're kind of slightly on edge and eager to get off it on some nicer roads. But it's a pretty direct route, and I guess if you just wanted to do good unhindered efforts, it would be quite a good road for doing that. But yeah, not for me. Okay, back to the fun hills, and with that comes some better quality camera work. This is Rhiwbina Hill, or as I used to say, Rhiwbina Hill. This was the first hill that I ever rode after moving to Wales, and it was kind of my first experience with the pitchy nature that tends to be typical of climbs in the UK. It's quite an ugly start as you cross over the motorway and you just see this road ramping up in front of you, and it's steep enough that you immediately feel pretty bogged down in the gears. And this is one of the longest sides to climb, as it has quite a few flat sections. The full segment's about 4 kilometers at 4%, but constantly steps up in ramps. So you're repeatedly climbing for a few minutes on around a 10% gradient, then get a few minutes of respite. Just kind of repeat that. So it's pretty perfect for over-under practice. I celebrated my 21st birthday by doing 21 reps of this first kind of ramp. After this first rise, you leave most of the houses behind and enter more farmy territory. You don't get open vistas around here, but you can get a bit of a view down towards Cardiff. I've fallen into the bad habit of basically standing up whenever I hit a pitch in the road. When they're just short little rises, it's hard for me to just sit down and settle into a rhythm. I just have this weird temptation to stand up and kind of push over it, which isn't in itself a bad thing, but I've noticed that when I'm doing like an all-out effort in like a hill climb event, or just when I'm really in the red, I don't have the energy to stand up, so I end up staying seated. Maybe that's why my short hill climbs haven't been great recently. The road you can see joining on the left is the climb from Tongwynlais, which I'll show next. After you pass the Mountain View Ranch, it flattens off again. And that's Blackbrook Road joining in from the left. And then picks back up one more time. You can see the top from here, and it's always tempting to just like biggering it up here, but it always drags on a little bit longer than I'm expecting. And the top of it just joins, of course, the A469. Rhiwbina Hill is probably the most pleasant of all sides to climb. It's obviously not very efficient because it's so undulating, but there's some nice changing scenery along the way, and generally it's not too busy. So this is the climb from Tongwynlais. It's a road I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. You pass the bottom of Caerphilly here. Just a short, 1 minute climb up to the castle there, which is quite cool. And this national speed limit sign is where the Ajax hill climb starts, which was our local club hill climb. I guess that was the first UK hill climb I did back in 2017. So lots of good memories from that. And as for the climb itself, the full segment from the very bottom to the top junction is about 4k at less than 5%. But I usually just use this Ajax hill climb segment. I kind of think of this as the bulk of the hill, which is about 2k at 6%. It's almost like a false flat at the beginning, and it just gradually gets steeper and steeper, and then a bit later on it probably kicks up. There's been quite a few car accidents on this road over the years. You get some fast drivers, low lights, plus a few narrow pinch points can make it a bit sketchy sometimes. Other than that, it'd be quite a nice meandering road through the forest. For some reason it's just absolutely always wet. This was actually an unusually dry day. Sometimes there's just absolute floods pouring down it. It's not quite as much of a problem when you're climbing, but when you're descending it's just a bit gross. And this was another one back when I was 17. I did 5 hours of hill repeats on this road. Don't know why. I found some random footage I've saved over the years. I've seen Geraint Thomas up here a few times, being chased by a dog. There's also quite a lot of trails in the surrounding area, and they do a fair amount of filming in Forest Bower, which is the little kind of walking, mountain biking area on the left shortly before the junction. This is the steepest section as you go past the car park and bear around to the right, and then it kicks up to the junction with Rhiwbina Hill. And the Ajax hill climb ends at the top of the next rise, so if you were to go left, but I won't show that because this is just back on the Rhiwbina Hill route again. So this one's quite a nice climb, not such a nice descent, and you just have to be a little mindful of drivers. And this is the classic, most famous side of the mountain. Just call it Caerphilly Mountain from Caerphilly. This is the one that they use in the Tour of Britain. They've raced up it quite a few times, and the Velothon used to come here as well. So the rear cam video is from when I set my PR back in, I think, August last year. And then I rode up it today, so that's where the front camera footage is from. I just sped it up to be in line with the rear footage because I was going way slower today. The segment's about 1.5 kilometers at 8%, but that's quite deceiving because that includes a little sort of rolling flat section at the beginning. It's a bit hard to pace this one at the start because it kind of kicks up and then dips down before the proper climb starts. And then, yeah, the road just ramps up ahead of you. Quite steep, like 14% for a little bit. And then you're just right into the throes of leg burning. It's a good solid hill that's pretty difficult to take easy. Over the years I've used it quite a lot for efforts, just to like test myself. But I haven't recently because I know I wouldn't be getting a PR, to be honest. Yeah, stay steep for a few minutes and then you pass by this lay-by and things flatten off quite a bit. There used to be a sign here that said 200 meters to the summit, which mysteriously disappeared about a year ago. It definitely always felt like more than 200 meters, so I'm assuming that's why. Once you get around this bend, it's just one more little surge to the top. And there's the famous Caerphilly Mountain snack bar. Open all day, every day. And finally we have this questionable road, which is 1.6 kilometers at 8%. We have some choice other names for this lane. I basically never did this road until about a year ago, and you'll see why. It's not really a road. It's pretty atrocious. The first time I actually descended it on a road bike was to film this, just to get down it the quickest way. And I think going down it was way worse than going up it. It's just a really torn up road, gravel everywhere, holes everywhere, terrible, but for some reason I end like half my rides coming up here. It's a bit of a nicer alternative to some of the busier, more trafficy roads. And climbing it isn't so bad because you're going slow enough that you have time to pick your line a bit better. Still not sure I would recommend it. I'm pretty good at picking the worst lines on dodgy roads. You wouldn't expect to meet many vehicles along here, but there tends to be a few. After this turn it gets a bit steeper. Later in the year this road becomes fairly unrideable on a road bike. It just gets coated in leaves and holds a lot of water, so best avoided. It flattens off around here, but still plenty of gravel around. People occasionally fly tip around here, and there can be a fair bit of glass around. Yeah, it's not exactly a stunning summit finish. But as much as I complain about this road, I'm sure I'll keep riding it most days. So that was all the routes up Caerphilly Mountain. If nothing else, making this video has made me a bit more appreciative of the climbs I have accessible from the door. I was thinking of ranking them in terms of either difficulty or enjoyability, but it really varies just depending on what you're looking to get out of the hill. I used to just always ride Rhiwbina, but recently I've been favouring Wenallt because I love the steeps, and of course always prefer the quieter routes. The most well-known ascent is, of course, the main route up from Caerphilly, but if you're in the area, it's definitely worth checking out a few of the others, and maybe completing the Caerphilly Mountain spider. Although, I'll be running for the hills if I saw a spider that looked like that.